Welcome, everyone. My name is Martha Hughes, and I am the Governance Council President. I'll pass it off to Beth and Deb.
Good evening, Beth Dorado, Director, Gordon Burnell Charter School.
Deb DeTore, member, Gordon Burnell Charter School Board.
Jody Burchett, council member. Board member, I should say. Sorry.
Tina Martinez, council member.
Diane Hensley, Assistant Business Manager.
Sabai Jadi, council member.
Sammy Marquez, business manager.
Erica Rivas, the note taker.
Chris Kazan, principal.
And I know that we have a few guests who are maybe not familiar. The roll call is just to, in our recording, let people know who's in attendance. So I'll invite, we have a guest visiting today. Ben, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Ben Sparks. I'm guest perspective member.
Thanks. And then Charles, we'll hear from you a little bit more, but we'll get an introduction now.
Hi, my name is Charles Ellis. I'm the math teacher at Gordon Burnell North 4th location.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Our next item of business is to approve today's agenda. So thank you, Beth, for displaying that here on the screen. Did anyone have any questions, comments, corrections? We got the date changed on the agenda. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve today's agenda?
I motion to approve today's agenda.
Thank you, Jody. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Salah. Do I have all in favor?
Aye.
Great. We have approved today's agenda. And then we're next going to look at minutes from our October meeting. All of our board members have had a chance to go through these in depth. Were there any questions, corrections on last month's meeting minutes? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve October's meeting minutes?
I motion to approve October's meeting minutes.
Thank you, Sabah. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jody. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we have approved last month's minutes. And here in our area for public comment is typically where we have our teacher of the month. So I'll pass it over to Beth.
Thank you, everybody. I get the honor today of introducing Charles Ellis. Charles is a fairly new staff member with us. He's in his second year. He applied to a reading interventionist position that we had open for last year, and he interviewed very well. We were very excited about that possibility. And we also had other great reading interventionists apply for that year. And what we didn't have was any strong math teacher candidates. And so we, in all transparency, went to Charles and we were like, we really think that this could be a great fit. We're really desperate for a math teacher. Charles came to us with a special education license in secondary levels and was willing to get a waiver on his math endorsement and give it a shot. And at the end of his first year, there was actually an English humanities position that opened up, which is a lot more in his wheelhouse. And we gave him first crack at that position in case the math wasn't working out as well as he had hoped. And his response was, I want to stick with it. I started this, I want to finish it. And so he continues to work towards his full math endorsement, which is a feat. I don't know if anyone has tried to prove that they're a highly qualified math teacher in the state of New Mexico, but it is no joke to demonstrate competency in the higher level math courses. And so I just am super impressed with Charles's modeling of persistence and endurance, because that's what we're trying to teach all of our students, right? Is that when we want something and we go after it, we can make it happen with a lot of hard work. So Charles is in his second year as our math teacher, and a real integral part of our North Fourth team. So thanks for joining us today, Charles. It's great to introduce you. And I ask all of our visiting teachers just to kind of talk a little bit about how you see the Gordon Burnell mission and vision in the work that you do. And you're muted.
Hi, thank you everybody for having me. It's great to be here and see everybody. This is my second year at Gordon Burnell. This job is my first time teaching general ed content, teaching math, and teaching at Gordon Burnell. So it's a very big shift from my 10 plus years of education before this. At the beginning of my teaching career, my first exposure to Gordon Burnell was when an earlier prime member of the school, Kim, was giving a talk at education conference downtown. And I kind of snuck away from the group of my school where we were supposed to be going. I wanted to watch something more interesting. I found myself in a room where she was speaking. I was so struck that for the next 10 years, I wanted to work for Gordon Burnell. I kept looking for openings. Finally, recently, last year, an opening came up. As Beth pointed out, I applied for a different position than I took. I took math because I had wanted this job for so long. I wanted to jump into it. And the teaching flexibility at Gordon Burnell is what really draws me to the school and what I think we have to offer. Almost by definition, our student body at all of the campuses has been underserved by traditional schooling. It hasn't worked the way it was supposed to on paper. I had a little bit of time in the private sector looking at marketing, looking at target audiences and stuff like that. Not a ton of time, but I really want to bring that perspective to math, which is famously a lot of these students' most hated topic. They can't stand it. They avoid it. Lots of people avoid my class. How can we make math approachable and accessible and not terrifying and not the worst part of their educational experience? And while I haven't spent my life as a math teacher, in some ways that helps me because I can relate and see things more from the bottom level and see how can we make this accessible when it seems inaccessible to students. And I really appreciate that Gordon Burnell has given me the chance to experiment and try things with that.
It was so wonderful to meet you, Charles, and hear about your journey with Gordon Burnell. We're very glad to have you on the staff, and especially that you're putting yourself out of your comfort zone and, like you said, kind of approaching math from a different perspective. I find that very valuable as well. Any other questions or comments from board members? All right. Well, we thank you so much for your time. You're welcome to continue to join us for the rest of the meeting if you would like to see how a typical board meeting goes. Otherwise, we are happy to give you back your evening. So either way is fine with us, and we look forward to seeing you in the school setting at a Gordon Burnell event sometime.
It was really great to meet everybody. I am going to get dinner started in just a minute here, but thank you all for all you do.
Yeah, thanks, Charles.
Thank you.
All right. So, we'll go ahead then. We do not have any past business discussion items, and we'll jump into finance with our business team.
There we go. Trying to get myself off mute. Okay. So we do have quite a few bars today to get approved. We did go through them in detail at the finance committee meeting. I'll let Beth kind of talk more in detail about the last one when we get there. But I'll just go through the first few. The first one at the top, that $22,000 increase bar for city county grants. We have two different grants through Bernalillo County, one for Pathway Navigator and one is for housing vouchers. This is the second half of the Pathway Navigator. So then we'll have the full allocation for her. And then next month, we'll have another bar for the housing vouchers. And we should be all caught up with those city and county grants that we're expecting. You'll see we have quite a few transfer bars for IPP, teacher, principal training and recruiting. That's Title II, Title I, CSI MRI fund, and then our adult ed fund. And so all of these are just ensuring that we're not over budget at the function level. So we're just moving money within the fund, just at different functions. So that's what the transfer is. But they all zero out. So we always want to see with transfer or maintenance that there's no actual increase or decrease. We do have another bar for that same Title I CSI MRI, and it's actually an increase bar of 60,077. This is part carryover, part like kind of a reallocation of funds from APS, and so they did give us the order. We already have a plan to spend that 16,000, and so that should be encumbered and spent by the end of the year. And then this last one is an initial budget, so it's the first time we're budgeting this fund. This is our Innovation Zone grant, and it is almost $200,000. And I'll let Beth talk about kind of what it is and what we plan on spending it on.
I apologize. I couldn't remember when we went over this in the finance committee if I had identified this as a new funding source, and I don't think I had. And so I will get a written blurb in the December director's report to just make sure that it's documented. But this is a public education, a PED below the line grant. So it is for our K-12 high school side. And it is Innovation Zone is really about strengthening our capstone program, our CTE program, and launching a work-based learning program, a WBL program. So it is money that will largely fund a work-based learning coordinator who we have hired. Julia Fitzsimmons is discussed briefly in our director's report. She comes to us having last worked with the city of Albuquerque for several years, managing contracts. So she's well versed in program design and in contract management, but she also has a prior history in education. And so she's was looking for an opportunity to work directly with students again, but brings with her the skills that she learned working with contracts and projects and partners. So I'm really excited about her. We also, in our new hire of Enrico Marcelli, and in paying him to not only replace Dallas Griego as our special ed teacher, but also to work in the work-based learning program. He is another individual, funny that there's a pattern here, who applied for one position and ended up taking another. He applied for the work-based learning coordinator position, but he ended up, again, we didn't have great applicants for special education, and he came highly recommended and with all the certifications. And so we said, well, how do you think about a special ed position where you get to do a lot of the work-based learning hands-on stuff? And so he accepted that as well, and we're excited. The other part of this budget, in addition to those salary and benefits for Julia and part of Enrico, is mostly about contracted services, professional development, some support in improving our own data collection, and just really a large chunk of it in student stipends. And so the idea of building our work-based learning program is that student participants will earn money by participating. And so our hope is that we can get as many as 40 students some kind of regular income in the spring semester for their work and participation in job shadowing, internship, career exploration type activities, and in really building those workplace readiness skills. And so we hope to not only prepare them for employment, but also compensate them for the work that they put into that preparation. And so we're really hopeful that that also increases attendance rates and graduation rates for those by making it easier for them to sustain themselves while they're also engaged in school. So super excited about this funding stream. It is something that the legislature has increasingly supported over the last couple of cycles. And so this fund at PED has been growing. It's just the first year that we applied and were awarded the funding. So I'm excited and looking forward to working with the new staff members to really build positive experiences for students and get them some work experience through the program itself. So super exciting.
Any
Thanks, Sam,
questions?
for giving me a little time because I forgot to write about it.
Does anybody have questions on that fund? Perfect. So that is all the bars. They are listed, of course, in detail. If you want to look through them and have any questions, just let me know. But we'll just keep on going. Increase in the initial budget. Alrighty. Getting into some of our graphs, kind of the financial analysis. Of course, always look at our projected budget balance by fund. We always want to make sure that this percent of budget is not over 100%. If it is, we're over budget and we need to know why. But everything here looks good. We like seeing these higher percentages in a lot of our funds. So that looks good there. Looking at our revenue, of course, we're always getting our operational every month. SB9, HB33, those just come in every month like clockwork. The rest are on an RFR basis. So it's just as soon as those RFRs get approved, we are getting our money back. Looking at our yearly expenditure comparison, we didn't have much of a shift at all. Very minimal, very similar to last year. No big changes here. So that looks good. This is something that we always like to look at is this function code change. So this is looking at instruction, instructional support. So what we're spending in the classroom, we're sitting at about 64% this month, a little bit higher than last month, which is great. But we always like to talk about how we are going to have another large capital expenditure, which is going to completely skew this number. And so this will drop because our capital will increase. We're kind of expecting it anywhere between January and February. This is going to be for our elevator that we are working on building. The LPA amendment will hopefully be next month, right, Beth? So that we can get it all approved and kind of get that process going. But this is a good baseline for us to be without any, one-time expenses, large expenses. We are spending the majority of our money in the classroom, which is what we like to see. Questions here? Perfect. Looking at our liquidity, so this is how much cash we have on hand to cover monthly recurring expenses. We have about a 6.4, so a little over 6 months worth of cash on hand to cover if our revenue stopped tomorrow, we would have enough money to keep us for a few months. This is really where we've been trying to get to the last few years and steady, which is great. And so the school is very liquid and we're just in a great position right now with cash. The budget analysis, this is a little bit more of a detailed picture of one of the graphs on the first page. And so just looking at that percentage spent, we did go through this in detail in the finance committee. Two that are over budget right now. And this is that city county grants that will have another bar next month. And once we have that, we will no longer be over budget. Assistant as well, same thing. We're just waiting on the award letter, which we should hopefully be getting in January. They did just let us know that their all the applications are up for approval at their next meeting in December. And so we're hoping to see those award letters come out as soon as we get them. We did go through all of the lower percentages as well in the finance committee and kind of talk through why some of them are low, why some of them are higher. A few of our funds, this Carl Perkins and the CTE program, we don't have approval yet from APS to spend them. So that's why those are both at 0. Those are the main ones. The rest it either carries over as cash or we do have a plan already to spend them. But does anybody have any questions on any specific funds?
No, I was just going to say thank you, Sammy, for that overview that we got in the finance committee. So just a reminder to all board members, We do go into these numbers a little bit more in depth during the committee meeting, but you're also welcome to bring up any questions that you have during the main meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you, Martha. Looking at our check report, did anybody have any questions on any of the checks? Quite a few cut last month, so I know it's a little longer list. Of course, at the bottom, we have all of our payroll checks, payroll liabilities down here. Alrighty. We'll keep on moving. The next quite a few pages is going to be kind of just those detailed reports, summary reports, balance sheet, all of that stuff that we're just going to kind of go ahead and skip over for time's sake. This just goes line by line, looking at all of our accounts, all of our balances, that kind of stuff. Let's see. Here's the balance sheet, and then statement of revenues, expenditures, and change in fund balance. And I just want to get to the bank reconciliation here. We do tie out here. And you will notice that there were two different bank statements this month because we did have our bank, New Mexico Bank and Trust, got bought by UMB Bank. And so they did switch on us mid-month. So if we get to the first statement here, you'll see this statement ended 10/13. This is at New Mexico Bank and Trust. And then the next statement does end on the 31st. And then we do tie out to our ending balance here. So this is the statement going forward that you guys will expect to see in the packet. Any questions on anything that we went over today? No? Well, then that's all that I have.
Thank you, Sammy. Really appreciate your business leadership, and especially as you're coming out of audit season, all of the extra time and energy that you've put into our finances recently, and Diane as well. I don't know what we would do without you both and the whole team. All right, so let's move down to our action items related to finance. So we'll move first to action item A. Do I have a motion to approve the accounts and payroll vouchers?
I motion to approve accounts and payroll vouchers.
Thank you, Sabah. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Deb. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have approved the accounts and payroll vouchers. And the next is, do I have a motion to approve the budget adjustment requests?
Motion to approve the bars.
Thank you, Sabah. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jody. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have approved the bars for this month. And then should we wait to go over contracts related to, because they're in your director's report then, Beth?
I can hit them now. Sammy, do you want to stay for the K-12 approval? Is that important?
Yeah, I'll stay just in case. If
Okay.
you guys have questions, I can relay them to Brian or whoever needs.
Okay, so let's maybe just have like a quick overview on those sections, Beth, to remind folks from what we read in your director's report, and then we'll move to approving those.
Absolutely. So there, as always, the board reviews and approves any contracts or purchases over $60,000, and we do have a couple for your review this month. The first was with K-12 Vertex, which is our business office, and so we have historically signed 3-year contracts at a time with the business office, and we're at the tail end this fiscal year of that 3-year relationship, and so we are interested in renewing. And so linked in the director's report was both the master service agreement, and the scope of work provided. And so one of the things that I think is important to point out is where is it? I will speak about it and then we can find it if need be, but hopefully you saw it as well. This came up in a previous audit, and so I just want to remind us that the K-12 fee is a sliding scale. And so as our revenue increases, it's it's already outlined, but there's a percentage increase that K-12 would experience as well. So when we have more funds and we have more revenue and our SEG is higher, we hire more people. And remember that K-12 supports us as human resources in the business office as well. So there's an increase in work in terms of all of the benefits and the enrollment of employees. And as we get more money, we also expend more money. And so there's an increase of work in RFRs, request for reimbursements, and in the scale of work that they do. So that was the only thing that I wanted to point out, was just acknowledging that the contract isn't a set price. But there is a set scale that is not only reflected in the contract, but also reflected in K-12's contract with ACES. Because remember, we actually engage with K-12 through a procurement company. And so while this is the contract that outlines the scope of work and the agreement that we have with K-12, the actual money runs through ACES because of the state contract that K-12. So K-12 goes through the RFP process and is approved as a vendor at the state level, and we engage with them and we pay their monthly invoices through ACES, which is a procurement support company that we utilize in addition to CES. Career in Richmond? No, what does CES stand for? Is it career? No,
Cooperative- Cooperative Education Services.
CES is the Career
Never
Enrichment
mind.
Services
It's
at Taft Albuquerque High.
Never mind.
This CES is the Cooperative Educational Services,
Yes,
which
yes.
is another procurement company. So that's a little bit of context that kind of surrounds our relationship with K-12 that I thought might be helpful as well.
So Beth, I have one question.
Mhm.
When I read this, do you mean FY 26 or does this take us through 27? 143,700.
So our FY 26 is the contract that we're currently working under.
Okay.
And so this is actually kind of in preparation for next school year. So
Okay,
this
okay.
contract would then begin at the end of FY 26 and secure our relationship with K-12 through the next couple of
So
years.
it's not a typo. Okay, thank
Mhm.
you.
Absolutely. Any other questions about the K-12 contract? The other three contracts that I present are related to our new hires. So Enrico Marcelli is our new special education teacher, and even at a prorated this far in the year, he's over that 60,000. He's a level 3 teacher with many years of experience, and we're super excited to have him. Gangweir and Fitzsimmons, because of the prorated times, are not over the 60,000, so they don't technically require your approval. But historically, I've presented all employee contracts to you at the beginning of the year as part of the review of contracts that could be over 60. So I included them for your review and for informational purposes here. But the two contracts that are over 60,000 would be the K-12 for our business office and the contract with Enrico Marcelli, who is a level 3 teacher making over that $60,000.
Yeah, I nearly sent an email to Beth to like double check on the salaries because I am used to seeing the contracts at the beginning of the school year. And so I was worried that they showed a little bit low, but then I had to remind myself, oh, we're almost halfway through the school
Yeah,
year.
they're
And so
prorated.
that's why. Okay. And then going back quickly to the uh K through 12 contract. And so mentioning, the previous finding, it's something that we've kind of figured out how to manage and record differently then so that it's not, because of the sliding scale, it's not necessarily going to be a finding in the future.
It actually wasn't a finding. It was just
Oh, I
questioned
mean,
by the auditors. And
questioned.
so
I see. Okay.
it might have developed into a finding. It did not, but it was something the auditors, because what happened in that year is we predicted a revenue of a certain amount and we opened the PO in that amount, and then our numbers increased significantly. And so our revenue went up significantly. And so there was a mid-year adjustment to our payment to K-12, and the auditors had pause about that and they questioned it. There was no finding noted, but it did come up in discussion. And so I just wanted to remind us that that could happen. If the school scales up significantly, then we would pay our business office more to help us with those finances. Likewise, and it has happened in previous years, if the school's income reduced significantly, then we would not be obligated to pay K-12 at the same level that we had previously. And so just noting that that's part of the agreement.
Okay.
And just to clarify too, it's like a bracket that your SCG will fall into. And so even if we had an increase or a decrease, there's the potential that you stay within that same bracket, so there won't be a change. But it's if, like what Beth was saying, if it's a significant increase or a significant decrease, then you'll see that shift. And, if you get less money, then we're going to charge you less money. If you get more money, then we'll charge you more money because of the scope of work, right? So that's really all that it is. And the auditors, it's never been an issue in the past. I don't know why last year she made a big deal of it, and it was just up for last year school. I'm not sure why, but the auditors this year had no questions or anything about our contract. So, but yeah, so just like Beth said, it's just in a bracket. We fall within a bracket depending on how much money we get. If you move up or down significantly, your bracket will probably change.
Right. Any other questions or comments on these items? All right. Well, let's go ahead and move forward. Do I have a motion to approve contracts over $60,000, including K through 12 accounting's contract and the new staff members?
I motion to approve those contracts.
Thank you, Sabah. Do I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
I heard Deb first. Are there any nays? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have approved contracts over $60,000. Thank you, Sammy and Diane, so much for joining us at this meeting and your expertise, and hope you have a good rest of your evening, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a
Good
good
night.
week.
All right. We'll pass it back to Beth to kind of further dive into the other components of the director's report.
Thank you, Martha. Scrolling back up to the top, if you were at last month's meeting, we did get to say goodbye to Charmaine, who is pursuing school and offers her continued support in ways outside of continuing as a board member. And so just wanted to circle back around and make sure that everyone had a link and could review her letter of resignation. And made sure that you had her contact information, which is included there. Deb's gonna fix her phone there, but I'll just keep sliding along. I did provide some staffing updates. We lost Dallas Griego, who was a stellar special education teacher and really was saddened by the news. She did give appropriate notice and was appropriately sad about leaving us as well, but sometimes life situations change, and hers had. And so she needed to take a job that just had a different impact on her life. And so we were able to replace her fairly quickly, and we are super excited. So there's the mixed emotions, right? In terms of losing a quality staff member who was doing an excellent job, and then bringing on someone that we're super excited about. And so Enrico Marcelli is our new special education teacher. And he applied for that work-based learning coordinator position, but is happy to stay invested in our new workplace readiness program. He will be the teacher of record that works with Julia Fitzsimmons very closely. And if you may have noticed in his contract, that is additional compensation. And so he's taking a full-time special education position, and then he's taking additional part-time position as the regular ed work-based learning. We expect him to participate in those additional hours. He's super excited to help set up work-based learning sites. He's very motivated and feels very connected in our community in terms of helping find employers that want to give students an opportunity to do job shadowing, to do internships, and to get jobs. And so he's really driven by that piece of our new program. And so he will work closely with Julia to help deliver those direct services in terms of workplace readiness skills. But he also is going to have his hands in and be working hours outside of his contracted special education day to really help us launch a successful work-based learning program. So we're super excited. I talked about Julia Fitzsimmons earlier, in her history of coming from the city, and Elizabeth is actually not replacing anybody. So Elizabeth and Julia are new hires, new positions, just based on our continually to increase numbers. We were hesitant over the summer to hire a special education teacher, especially being so uncertain about Job Corps' future. We were worried if we're going to lose 30% of our community students, we didn't want to hire someone and then be like, never mind, we don't have the numbers to sustain the position. So we were very conservative last spring and didn't hire a special education teacher, even though we thought we might need one. Our numbers rebounded healthily this fall. And we really do need the support, and we have the budget. And so we hired that additional special education teacher. We need two at North Fourth. I think going into 80-day, I don't know our numbers for 80-day, and I should know them. That's like next week. I do know that 52 of our, whatever the full number is, probably right around 180 or so is where I think we are, but 52 of them are on IEPs. And so we really do need special ed support. And we have our full-time special education teacher at MDC, and we really do need two of them down at North Fourth, where the majority of those students are. So Elizabeth comes to us. She's fairly new in the education world. She is an immigrant from Peru who immigrated with a degree and a job in the medical field, but has found it difficult to get licensed in the same way in the United States. So she found education. She's been at Cien Aguas for many years as an educational assistant. She's fully licensed as a special education teacher now. And we're super excited because she brings not only her real passion for working with students on IEPs, but also her bilingual endorsement. And we have a growing number of Spanish-speaking students at our North Fourth campus. And so we're just excited that she brings that experience and that knowledge to the team. So super exciting. I'm still working through last year's staff members in the staff member of the month, but shortly we'll be hopefully down to the bottom of the list, and I'll get to bring some of our new staff members to a meeting as well. So excited about that. We talked briefly in the finance meeting too about the lease purchase agreement amendment. Unless there is further discussion, we've talked about this a couple months now about the different options that we had in terms of now using the money that we have for our elevator and other capital improvements at the North Fourth campus, including the outdoor learning space, the sidewalk to our back gate to that outdoor learning space, the elevator shaft, the elevator, And then we're looking at putting a shower in one of our new bathrooms as well, because we often have students who could really use a hot shower. And so it wouldn't be open, to anybody to use, but we sure would like to be able to give that opportunity. So super excited. We have the majority of that funding came to us through capital improvement appropriation during the last session. And I moving forward, again, unless there's additional discussion with doing those capital improvements with our long-term partner, Steve Nakamura, who built our high school building, who built our career development center. And so there are ways to engage other contractors, and we've talked about them briefly in previous meetings, but I am having our lawyer kind of look at what it would take to stay with our current developer, and that means a lease purchase agreement. And so he still owns this property. We were in a large debt to him. Now we're in very little debt to him. And then what we'll do is grow our debt slightly to cover the full cost of all of these capital outlays, not very much at all, because we have this large capital appropriation to put down as the deposit. And so the details, he's working on the final bids for all of the things that we want to do. We're working with the lawyer. The proposal that I'm at now currently is that hopefully in the December meeting, if not the January meeting, we will have a full breakdown of the costs for all of those different projects, and an LPA amendment in which we will finance a small part of it, but pay most of it right up front. And so happy to answer any questions about that, or pause for some discussion around this, because it's been an ongoing discussion and I just want to make sure we have time to process it. Thoughts? Awesome. I'm excited. If the LPA amendment, if the lawyer has all of that language for you all to and us to review in December, then we will work on the ROTF, the request to transfer of funds from the capital fund into our ability to spend it in January. We're looking at hopefully ordering this elevator at that point. It's about 13-14 week out to get delivery of an elevator. And so, but construction would start as soon as we got the ROTF approved, because we got to build the elevator shaft, put the elevator in. And we certainly have all those other little projects, including our outdoor learning space, that sidewalk, and the bathroom. And then also, I almost forgot previously, we're also looking at increasing our solar capacity in this round as well. There's a whole new roof with no solar on it. And so if we're going to go through all the hassle of an LPA, we might as well get everything that we think is helpful for us. And so our hope again is that the lawyer has the amendment and the agreements for review in December. We get approval from PED in January, and construction might start February, March. And hopefully we can all click on an elevator next school year and go up to the second floor, which I'm super grateful for, because there are several times that I'm walking up the stairs with someone and I wish I could have offered them the elevator. So I'm super happy for this. We do have a action item around a potential, another new potential funding source. We did submit an application to the city of Albuquerque, which we hope will provide funding to open a community food pantry here at the North Fourth campus. Our application was for a part-time coordinator of a food pantry who could help arrange for donations and storage and disbursement, and make sure that the right community members have access. And the rest of the grant was to make sure that we have food on hand to stock that food pantry in culturally appropriate ways, and to help our community make sure that food scarcity isn't an issue. In order to submit that grant, there was an authorized official designation form that Martha signed on my behalf. I think I might have linked the unsigned one and she forwarded a signed one. this week. And then if we get the funding, we will have to demonstrate that the board approved myself as an authorized official designate to receive and manage the funding. And so I'll pause there if there's any questions about that. Martha, you want me to keep going or you want to do an approval item? But that is an action item.
Let's go ahead and just approve it, just so we can kind of cross it off the list, and that'll give you a little break from having to.
All my gab in there.
I know it's probably a lot to go through, so give you a moment. So any questions on that approval form? Just basically, the board giving Beth the approval to manage that grant should we get it. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the City of Albuquerque authorized designation?
I move that we approve the City of Albuquerque's authorized designation of Beth.
Thank you, Deb. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Jody. Any nays? No. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Right, we have approved the City of Albuquerque authorized designation. Thank you, and we'll go back now to the director's report, Beth.
I think when I'm done here and the other two action items, one will be tabled because I had hoped perhaps the LPA amendment might be ready for review this month. And when we posted the agenda, we still had our fingers crossed. We will table that. And then the other action item is to accept Charmaine's resignation, but I will hustle through the remainder of my director's report. We do have an ongoing discussion about charter renewal. To refresh our memory, we have two options. We are currently authorized as a district charter, and our authorizer is the Albuquerque Public Schools District. And our other option is to apply to be a state charter under the Public Education Commission. Charters are 5-year contracts to operate as a public school in New Mexico. We are up for rechartering next fall. And so we will begin working on preparation for that in the spring semester. And it would be really helpful to be certain that we're preparing for the right application. And so, if this has been up for discussion, we've had some breakout sessions. Several board members have attended informational sessions with me, where the Public Charter Schools of New Mexico talks about the difference between these two authorizers and the decisions that school have to decide who they want to apply with. I am feeling firm that my recommendation is to continue forward with APS, even despite some autonomy things that come up with there, and there's always politics with that board. There are autonomy and politics issues with the PEC as well. The reason that I firmly believe that APS is our best choice at this point is because of their acknowledgement and support of our adult program. We transparently leverage a lot of things that our high school can provide infrastructure for our adult students who have an exponentially less fruitful revenue stream for the services that they can receive. And APS supports that. APS champions it. And I don't want to risk that large population of people that we serve when APS has been a solid partner. It seems like a risk without a large cause, right? Without a big payoff or something that we're trying to escape in terms of a relationship with APS. So that's where, in all of the back and forth and research and conversations that I've been in, I kind of land. But this is a board, is not just a school leadership decision, but a school leadership and a board decision. And so I open it up for further conversation now, or if you're thinking about this later and want to engage in conversation or see some of the information that I have that's kind of led me to this opinion now, I stand for questions, and I'm happy to to continue conversation outside of the open meeting as well.
Thanks,
Beth.
Beth. I wanted to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Tina.
When does this decision have to be made?
There is a school who spent all of this last year preparing to reapply with APS, and then in the last couple of weeks switched and changed their mind and applied with the PEC. So applications with both authorizers are due in October of next year. Our current contract covers this year. Our current contract covers next year. But we apply, get approved, and then look at the 5 years after next year. So starting SY28 through, I can't do math fast enough, would be our next contract cycle. So, yeah, 32. Oh my God, that seems too far away. But so we've got time. And even when we decide, we can change our mind. We just have to have an application ready for one or the other before the deadline, or we will be in big trouble. So I think that I would like us to be, kind of clear on the direction that we're heading January, February of next year, so that we can spend several months calmly, intentionally preparing for whichever application we intend to submit.
Did I hear you say that there was a chart or some kind of information that has pros and cons of both options that was presented at some meeting?
There was a chart that we kind of co-created at a PCS&M meeting. I can certainly hunt that down. It's not very polished. Do you know what I mean? It's notes that came out of a facilitated conversation with half a dozen charters who are up for renewal next year and who are pondering the same question. And so it's not a polished presentation, but it does kind of outline some of the pros and cons, and I can certainly hunt that down and send it out.
That would be great, because I agree with your analysis of why we've been with APS and why we might consider sticking with that. But I'm not real clear on what the other differences are between the two. Yeah.
I'm happy. I'll pull that together, and we can certainly revisit the conversation with some additional resources to look at in an upcoming conversation.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
And there was a recent meeting. Was that just yesterday that you and Deb attended, Beth?
Deb and I attended an APS board meeting last night.
Yeah.
We were summoned along with 13. Well, we were one of 13, us and 12 other charter schools who are in designation, which I'm going to talk about as one of the last items in my director's report. We sat through a 2-hour board meeting, and then when our agenda item came up, there were really no questions to be had. So there was one question, and other charter schools answered it, and that was that. It was about professional development. In reflecting on that, there's a lot of assumption and inference in these next few statements. So this is Beth's opinion. And so take it as that. But I really think what that was all about was in some recent APS policy meetings, it has been suggested that the APS board should have increased oversight and standardized communication with the charter boards. And I think Joseph Escobedo, who is our APS liaison, well, I know that in those spaces, he said, you don't need to standardize and make it a compliance issue that the APS board is quarterly speaking with charter boards. If you want to know something from them, ask. And so I think this was again, this is an inference and assumption on my part, but I think it is good intentioned. That is an example of him saying, look, if you have a question, they'll show up. And they said they had questions, and we all showed up. And then they didn't have any questions. But just I think it was a show of force, right? Like they don't need to standardize and require that we're there quarterly reviewing progress, kind of outside their reach. So I think it was him just saying, look, all you got to do is ask and they'll come. And so they asked, we came, we weren't needed. We hope they don't do that again.
Okay, thanks
Did you
for
think?
providing
Well, yeah,
context.
something
Anything else, Deb?
very eloquently. That I think that was good for them to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. We sat, we came, we sat, we left.
Okay, yeah.
Us and the other 12.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
The board
okay,
was
good to
empty
know.
when we all left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of along the lines then with the other committee meeting that I had attended, where they're kind of going through this process, so there's no definitives yet as far as changing policies around interacting with charters, and it seems like we do have that strong APS support staff who are supporting the charters and our relationships as well. Okay.
And then remember that board is shifting.
It's changing.
There was
Yes.
a recent election, and key members of the board, including the president, were not reelected. And so in
Yes.
January, they'll have new board members and they'll have to redo their processes to determine who's president and how the officers fall. And so it's likely that board will shift over the next
Yeah.
couple of months. And that could also be something to keep an eye on as we make
Very
this
true.
decision. Do we want to be authorized with APS or with the PEC?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
I'm on the last couple sections of my director's report. As always, I link in my Monday morning memos. If you've got time and you're interested, that can kind of be a rabbit hole to dive into and just see what staff and I are discussing and reviewing on a weekly basis. As at a previous request, I've included a professional development kind of section. We did have a very fruitful working session at the end of October. And I always remind people, I don't make decisions. We have a calendar committee. So the very first year, I decided what our calendar was. And after that, I created a committee and I don't even vote. I attend, but I don't vote because half the staff is irate that we're having a PD day on Halloween and the other half is exactly what they planned for. So that being said, it was a great working, all staff showed up. We had a really productive day. And then the last thing I want to talk about is our Vista score. It was updated. It did drop. If you go to New Mexico Vistas, which is a post-COVID version of the report card. We've been through every governor throws the baby out with the bathwater, and then every Secretary of Education creates a new system to be in compliance with federal guidelines in terms of our designations. We are in the third year of Vistas. This administration's, there was several years where it just didn't happen around COVID. And then prior to that was a different administration and a completely different system. If you look, you can look at any school in the state and you can review how they are designated. We never look good on these because they're measuring things that are not important to us. And so the biggest, there is a huge technical manual that you can look at, but the biggest impact in this formula is our graduation rates. But remember, they're looking at four-year graduation rates. And the only way we can have many of our students be successful in a four-year graduation rate is to have a time machine and then go back before they're 18 and help them graduate on time. Because the majority of our students join us when they're 19, 20, and 21 years old. They're already not successful in that metric. The other large metric that's used to give us this scary looking score is what they call proficiency and proficiency growth. But the tool that they're using is the SAT. We are not trying to prepare students to do well on the SAT. We are trying to prepare students to be proficient at the level at which they would need to get a high school equivalency, which is about a 9th grade reading level and a 6th grade math level. There are many students who well excel that, but that is what we consider proficiency. And so when you measure us on proficiency on the SAT and on four-year graduation rates, we don't do very well. The other thing to note in this designation is that it's on a bell curve. So it's in comparison to other schools. And so there's always going to be spotlight schools, there's always going to be traditional schools, and there's always going to be schools whose students don't trend well in the data. We don't work with our population because they trend well in the data. We work with our population because they don't trend well in the data, and they still deserve opportunity and access to education and to a future that they deem successful. So we did drop some, mostly because they changed the business rules on how they calculate CCR. We were higher than 26.6. We were significantly higher than 26.6, but we were still in the red because they do it on a sliding scale. So if you look at previous years, we're in the lower 40s, but the colors shift as well. So we are always going to be in the bottom quartile using these metrics. I don't mind explaining it. These are not the metrics that our stakeholders deem important to our students, and we are busily working on helping our students improve their lives, increase their skills, and get work learning experience and mental health supports. And so this, when we come out in this way, it was several iterations ago. And you can click around on this. A lot of our stuff is masked because our sample sizes aren't even big enough, which means that those things aren't even included. And then so then the graduation rate makes even more. Anyhow, there was several iterations of these designations ago. I was driving to work, and I was listening to 100.3 The Peak, and Johnny, Jackie, and Donnie were on, and they were like, look, all the high schools in the state were ranked. Let's look at the worst performing. And we were at the bottom of the list. And they clicked on it and they go, oh, well, no, why this is dumb. This is people, this is about students who are in jail. Of course they're not like, so they even on the radio, were kind of dismissive, like they shouldn't categorize them like this. Like, so I think that's funny. And that really happened many, many years ago, not in this cycle. But it is data. It is data that we own. And that we navigate, and that we are attentive to and try to understand. And so it was the 13 CSI and MRI schools that were called to the APS board meeting last night. 13 charter schools. Thank you. They have their own district traditional schools who are also classified as CSI or MRI. It was the charter schools with these designations that were called last night, and we are in good company with quality schools who are attempting to serve alternative populations. But any thoughts, questions, or concerns about our VISTAS designation?
I have a question, but not necessarily about VISTAS. Is there another measure, either state, created or otherwise, that would show how we're doing on the things that we do well so we can see growth? Math proficiency over a certain number of years, not at an SAT level, but just are our students being successful? Are there any measures like that we can look at that make more sense to us?
And I will look forward to, I'll bring a more updated review of those to the December meeting as well. Those are the things that we look at during our APS site visit. And so we've not had a fall site visit this fall yet, even though it's almost winter from APS. We're expecting one to be scheduled soon. They had 10 schools do renewal this fall, which was an incredibly high number, and that team has been really busy. Typically there's like 3 or 4 every year in a cohort. Like I said, there's about 6 looking at PEC and or a district renewal, but they had a really large cohorts of renewal, so they're a little bit behind. But during our APS site visits, we look at our mission specific goals. And I'll bring that data to the December report as well, even if the site visit isn't ready. I'll have to have it ready either way. And so we're tracking math proficiency and reading proficiency, again, at those levels that align with HSC acquisition. So NRS level 3 is kind of where we're saying is the cutoff. We can't graduate people under that unless they have an IEP, the way that our system is set up. And so, we're trying to get students at a minimum to a 9th grade reading level or a 6th grade math level. We hope that it's much higher, but we do track who's meeting those. And then we're also looking at our number of students who are meeting their individualized learning plan goals. So setting their own goals every semester and meeting them with the help of an advisor. We look at our SER numbers, which is student engagement rubric, how our students engaged in positive experiences. We try to raise that from when they first come to us to when they graduate, because we believe that trauma traumatizes, but healthy and positive experiences heal. So we're trying to get students to increase their involvement in community activities. And then we track CCR engagement. So our students doing career exploration, and we have a new coordinator and a new program. So we're hoping to see those numbers explode as more students have opportunity for work-based learning. So those are our mission-specific goals. They're what the APS oversees, and I do have some longitudinal data because we're in the 4th year of our APS contract. So we have data going back 4 years, looking at those goals, and we typically review them around site visit time.
Thank you.
And Beth, with the little tab that said additional metrics or something along those lines, can we take a look at that? Is that oh yeah, the additional metrics there. Is that anything that kind of helps tell our story?
In some ways, but typical PED fashion, this will be available later.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
All of them say that. Many of them say that. But these are things that are interesting to dive into, and I do think they help tell a story. And so, school climate comes out of a panorama survey that we do participate in. Per pupil expenditures, that's that number that Sammy talks about in the finance report. They want to see that high. Ours doesn't look that great because we're doing all these wonderful capital things. We raise the money and then we spend the money, and then that skews our per pupil expenditures. It makes it look like we're spending things outside of the classroom, but we're telling a story about how we're improving the environment for our students when you dig into what those numbers really mean. We do well in educator, again, but the data is not there. And they've been building this system. I don't know, let's look at last year's data and see if they ever actually did it. I apologize, my tone can get a little condescending with these because I do an incredible amount of reporting to this, and it never seems to be a complete story or one that anyhow.
Light of day.
Or one that actually, so that I just changed years. Now, if you notice, I'm in last year's. Let's see. Oh, I got to go back to view by schools. Sorry, I got lost for a second. I'm still in last year's up at the top. Yeah, whatever. So I'm in last year's, and they're telling me the data is going to be ready. It is what it is. It is how the state designates us as a type of school, spotlight, traditional, needing comprehensive support, needing in need of most rigorous intervention. We are in need of most rigorous intervention. It's on a bell curve, so we're never going to get out of this because we're never going to do better than schools that work with a different population on these metrics. But again, we own the data. It's ours, at least what is available.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. I was just kind of curious if there were any other things that they show on the website that would kind of help us, but like you said, it's frustrating if it's not updated. But that also is, part of the school and the board goals is to continue to, tell our own story and portray how we're doing well. All right. Any other questions or comments from Beth's director's report? All right, let's get to our other action items then. So we are going to table, or I hope we approve to table our lease purchase agreement because it has not quite been amended and put forth yet. So hopefully we'll look at that in December. Do I have a motion to approve or to table the lease purchase agreement amendment until December's meeting?
I motion to table the lease partners agreement until the December meeting.
Thank you, Jody. Do I have a second?
I'll
I
second.
second that.
I heard Tina first, so thank you, Tina. And then any nays? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have tabled the lease purchase agreement until next month. And then for those who are at the meeting last month, and we got to say goodbye to Charmaine, and then also then we have to formally approve her resignation this month. Do I have a motion to accept the board resignation from Charmaine Carter?
I move we accept the resignation from our board from Charmaine Carter.
Thank you, Deb.
Sadness.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tina. Any nays? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have accepted her resignation. I wonder what would happen if we didn't accept her resignation. Sorry, Charmaine, you can't leave. No. All right, so those are all of our action items. I would like to go quickly to some of our board priorities. Some things that came up actually related to the information that Beth shared in her director's report and through the Monday morning memos and the new Burnell Bulletin. I noticed that MDC is having a toy drive, and Rita, I believe it's no, not who's
Leilani.
helping organize.
Leilani, our social worker out of
Leilani, thank you. So they're looking for new unwrapped toys. So asking to kind of please respond to that by December 1st. I thought this would be a great opportunity for the board to kind of engage with the school in a different way. We'll talk briefly about our strategic planning and how that's going, but one of the areas we've been looking at is how the board can be more present and active in the school. And so if that's something that you are interested in, or if you know other people who might be interested in bringing new and unwrapped toys for the toy drive, please reach out to Beth, and I'm sure she can connect you to Leilani and anyone else who might be pertinent. There is a formal event on December 7th at the Westside Community Center. So that's also something like if you want to go in person and help volunteer, that would be another opportunity as well.
Can I interrupt very, very quickly?
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge that the Gordon Burnell, Mr. Gordon Burnell, the person for which the school is named, actually started this back in the 80s. And so he arranged for there to the MDC staff to donate toys to children of inmates. And at that time, they even had a gathering where inmates got to give those presents to their children. And so it was a very meaningful event. It really it helped tear down the boundaries between correctional officers and the people that they are charged with keeping safe while incarcerated. And it was him he and his wife that championed this event for decades. And MDC has carried it forth in his name. They paused it during COVID and only invigorized the opportunity last year. But just acknowledging that it does serve all inmates at Bernalillo County, detention center, not just Gordon Burnell students incarcerated there, but it is in Mr. Gordon Burnell's name and memory that the event continues. So it's kind of neat that we are involved.
Yeah, thanks for that context, Beth. Also, the next thing that I saw on the list was the Friendsgiving feast. I don't have a date written down for that. Was that something that just
Today,
happened? Is today? Okay. I
well,
was thinking maybe it was today.
but there is another similar lunch that will be cooked, hosted by students, that's set for December 17th.
Okay.
And so I think I will make sure to get that announcement out, because if you're available, you can come eat with students, and that would be super fun.
Yeah, or if you need help with other things, again, I'm trying to look for ways that we can continue to engage and have a presence with students and staff. Another good way that we can kind of put some of our, kind of an overview of the board, our goals, mission, contact information, I think, is through the Burnell Bulletin, or even just to advertise, like our monthly meetings and have the Zoom link there, because that's something the Strategic Plan Committee has talked about, getting greater awareness that we are accessible to everyone else in the community. And so Kiana is the one who's running that new bulletin, so I can always reach out to her and just make sure that she kind of has a rolling notice about the time of our monthly meeting, as well as the Zoom link, or even just the link to kind of our board page. There's also some ideas that we have of adding information to that board page so that folks really know, what is it that we do, how they can reach out to us when we meet, things like that. So thank you for providing those kind of connections to the school, because looking through those gave me some ideas of how we might get involved beyond just coming to graduation times. And they're really fun because it's yeah, I want to go to either a toy drive event or a school dinner and be around good folks there at Gordon Burnell. So real quick too, I'm gonna pull up some of our recent documents. So update on the Strategic Planning Committee. So now we are at 5-member board. So a quorum is 3. So I let Deb and Tina know that, it's trickier for the 3 of us to meet because that is a quorum. And so we are kind of more of past some of the initial planning stages of the strategic plan and are fleshing out the details. That's something that we're going to share with Beth and make sure that it aligns with the school's goals as they go into writing the charter. I've expressed that, sometimes it's still hard to walk that fine line between wanting actionable, specific, measurable goals, but also knowing that's not always the board's purview in terms of academic outcomes. So how can we best phrase it that we are supporting and monitoring in those areas? So that's something we continue to work on. But hopefully we'll have a basic draft for everyone to look at in December. Again, it's not something we have to have immediately finalized. As Beth said, we're still kind of making decisions around APS versus PEC in January, February, and early in the year, and then working on writing the charter application. So this is all kind of the background work to make sure that our strategic plan will help underlie theirs. What I can do is, if folks would like to look at our yearly goals as well as, the draft of the strategic plan, I'll send out an email with links to those. We are happy also to get full board comments or suggestions around some of the wording or filling in, the strategic plan, let us know. We're happy to address those, add those in. Like I said, we kind of have umbrella priority areas that address academics, finance, organizational goals, and then facilities, and that our yearly goals will kind of fit into those and work together over 5 years to monitor and support the school. Take a look at those. We're in a good place for our yearly goals this year. I think one of the only things, and actually, Beth, would you mind if I share my screen briefly?
Go for it.
Okay. Okay. So if folks are interested, again, I'll link this in email. It's in our board documents, but again, the link is probably easiest to find for folks. So for this year, we are going to have 6 deep dives of data and metrics throughout the year. So we've kind of mapped that out already using our board calendar, and it's something that Beth and I go over each month to make sure we're on track for what we need to put on the agenda for these. I think the only thing we had perhaps anticipated having an earlier training this year, no big deal. We're going to kind of look at that more in March when more of the board might be available, as well as new board members. In December, we'll kind of look at the school designation review. And again, so these are all the areas that we look at. So we're monitoring and helping to support academic data throughout the year. Our next goal is, this one's especially pertinent now that we're down to 5. It would be really great to get back up to 6 or 7 for recruitment and retention. So having some goals around this. So please, again, if you have anybody that you know or contacts that you can reach out to, send them a board overview document. If you need a copy of that, if you can't find it in our folders, let me know. I'm happy to send you the PDF of that kind of updated. And we're hoping, again, to have our training more in the spring so that we can include new board members in that. One of the things that would be nice to work on later in the spring is looking more at like the board succession plan of mapping out how are folks spending their 5-year terms? How are we making sure to recruit for leadership positions, continuing to improve orientation, just the process of onboarding folks. And then obviously working on our 5-year strategic plan was one of our goals for this year. So we're in a good place for that too. So just wanted to kind of revisit these under our board priorities so that everyone would be reminded that we do have goals for this year and we're working towards them. Any questions on those comments?
Martha, is the strategic plan something that the board will need to vote on and approve of, or is it separate from that?
Yeah, eventually we'll have to vote on and approve the 5-year strategic plan. And so that's why, yeah, I'll go ahead and send out a link to it now. Like I said, we don't necessarily have all of the columns filled in. It looks, we're still using the same template that we do for the yearly goals, but kind of the dates will be more spread out. But if folks have other ideas of how to better organize it or make it more, SMART goals align, we're definitely willing to hear those as well. So I'll let everybody kind of look at that in their own time so they have a little bit more time and focus on it. And it might not be something that we approve by December. December is just kind of our goal to have a full draft done. And then, we could be looking at more of approving it sometime in the spring. And I might have to adjust the dates, Beth, because once you mentioned like, school year 28. So I might even be thinking like, I think I was thinking even starting next school year, but maybe it's the following one. that would be for the 5 years.
I think it could go either way. I think that
Thanks,
I
Jody.
think it's been a little bit longer than 5 years since the board has had a strategic plan. So even if it's not aligned completely to the charter cycle, it might be nice for it to be like a year prior. Do you know what I mean? So the board is always kind of working on a 5-year strategic
That's
plan
true. Okay.
the year
Yeah.
before the contract renewal 5 plan goes into effect. I mean, I think that could be a nice cadence.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's good. Anything else you were wondering related to like the approval of it, Sabah?
No.
Yeah, and a quick update as well. I received an email from Kiana about the needs assessment. So she has been incorporating questions around the board's presence for leadership and staff members. And so she did report back that there was a big gap in knowledge of, just what the board does, so our function, and how they're, where we are here to serve staff, students, and community alike, and how they would be able to attend any meeting that they choose. And so that's something that, again, we're going to be working into our strategic plan to improve. She's still working on collecting a more kind of readable version of the data for especially in terms of like the student surveys. So that's something that she's still working on getting to us. And that's another reason too why, we won't have a final draft exactly of a strategic plan to present for December, because we really want to make sure we're taking a look at the data from the needs assessment and seeing if there's anything else that we need to incorporate into our goals related to the findings. But we're still, I think, in a really good track for being able to add those in. So I'm really appreciative of all the work that Kiana is doing at the moment. Those are all I had for my board priorities. Anything else from board members that they wanted to mention during this time or ask questions about? All right. So we have all of our action items. We still have a quorum of 3 now that we've accepted Tremaine's resignation, so we're officially 5. So let's go ahead then and move to close. I would like to thank everyone for being here, and especially our guest, Ben. I'll follow up to have a conversation with you, Ben, about your experience today and your continued interest in serving on the board. And I think also that you've made plans with Beth to visit the school, which is great. But thank you so much for being with us today.
I enjoyed it. Thank you very much. And Beth, I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds great.
Right, thanks. So future business, December 18th is our next board meeting. Same time, same place. And eventually we'll look at bylaws. I know it's still floating around, but hasn't been high priority. So do I have a motion to adjourn Gordon Burnell's Governance Council regular meeting on November 20th, 2025?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Sabah. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Tina. And we are all in favor. And so we have adjourned the meeting at 5:35 p.m. Thank you all.
Appreciate everybody. Have a great weekend and a happy next week.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, y'all.
Mhm.
Bye.